We still got a deadline. We still need to get that completed on the day. We struggled with an auction purchase. It was a long and laborious process, and it is very time consuming to get that sorted. And you know how this story is going to end, don't you, right? Hi everyone, welcome back to my case studies for Christmas, for 12 days of Christmas. Before I start, please could you do me a favour and like and subscribe to our channel. It really does help us to get those videos out there and more visibility, and it means that you get notified when I post more videos, which I will be doing more of in the new year. So today I want to tell you about a client who really struggled with an auction purchase because of his source of funds. Now it's an existing client of ours, so we knew him really well. It's not something that he hadn't done previously. However, the source of funds was more complicated than usual. Normally property deposits come from his existing portfolio, but he was trying to grow his portfolio, as many people are, and so he had decided to borrow some money from family members and private investors. Now this is usually absolutely fine, as long as we can make sure two things. We know the source of the deposit, and we know where the source of funds have come from for that client, and we can get their ID, bank statements of various bits and pieces. The lender needs to be comfortable with that side of things. And the other part of it is that we need to make sure that we can refinance and pay back those investors from the refinance. So there's two parts to this, and the added complication was there was lots of different parts to the deposit, and we were on a time scale. It was an auction, we had 4 weeks. So yes, a challenge, but not anything that we had not encountered previously. Now when the valuation came back in on this property, the GDV was lower than the client was expecting. So therefore, the money that he was supposed to be paying back to his investors on the refinance, based on 75% of that GDV figure, was not enough, so he couldn't repay those debts. So the lender had lots of questions to ask around that, in terms of how's that going to be repaid in the future? Are these investors happy with a longer term loan? Like, just what's the detail around that? They need to understand the detail with that. Yes, we're on a time scale of 4 weeks. The valuation obviously comes back in 2 or 3 weeks into that process, and suddenly the goalposts had changed. So Jackie had a good chat with the underwriter and explained that we just need to get this case offered so that we can get all the legal documentation sent out, the client can sign it all, we can start that process and make sure that we get this completed. So the underwriter agreed to condition some of the source of deposit funds, and then we got the offer out. So that was one kind of hurdle overcome. But we've still got a deadline. We still need to get that completed on the day, and we still need to get all this source of fund stuff dealt with. So it was a long and laborious process, and sometimes with auctions, this is what happens. You end up having to literally drop everything else and deal with a particular case, and that's what I think clients often don't understand. It's like, it's not necessarily at the beginning or the end. It could be some part of the way through the process that something crops up which is a big problem, and it is very time consuming to get that sorted. So Jackie did drop everything else and got in with this. So the other part of the process that's super important is having a client that understands that questions will be asked, information will need to be gathered, and obviously our job is to act as mediator between the client and the lender. We really have to understand what we need to challenge and what we can't challenge, because if you challenge every question that you're being asked, it's time consuming. It's got to be looked at by somebody, possibly somebody more senior than the person you're speaking to. So you can delay things by challenging those documents that are required. We need to understand, and this is where our experience comes in, what's able to be challenged and what's not. And then we also need to be able to work with the underwriter and work with the client. So the client having complete trust in us, in terms of they know whether we have challenged it if we needed to. If we're saying, no, that's not something I can challenge, then you've just got to get the documents together and get them over to us. And we will work as quickly as we can. We got everything over to the underwriter. A lot of lenders now have got like a specific department to deal with their AML queries. So the underwriter often isn't able to sign off those questions, those bank statements, the ID, all those things, particularly if it's come from anything slightly higher risk. So generally that would mean money coming from abroad. There are some instances where it's UK money, but generally it's where there may be a trail in between, but the source of funds is from abroad. With this client, he needed to go to the particular AML department to be looked at. So it gets to 48 hours before the day of the auction, or the completion date. The documents have all been signed, that's all done. The money is with the solicitor ready to complete. Everything else has been signed off, like buildings insurance is sorted, all the legal stuff has been dealt with. Literally the only thing that we're waiting for is a sign off for the deposit. So again, Jackie's chasing the underwriters back and forth with this, and she won't let it go. Like, if you've ever spoken to Jackie, she will not let it go. She becomes really focused on what it is that she's trying to achieve, and she will not let that go. We've never let a client down on an auction purchase because of something like this. So yeah, super important that we get that done. And you know how this story is going to end, don't you, right? I'm not going to tell you the story and then say we couldn't do it. So on the afternoon of the day before the final date that we had for completion, eventually all of this was signed off, and it was all agreed, and then the funds were able to be sent. I mean, luckily this was a case with a lender that we know really well. The legal team and the completion team are super nimble, so as soon as it's agreed, the money can go like instantly. So yeah, it was a big relief at the end. Client was obviously really happy that we got that over the line, and interestingly, when it came to the refinance, which we've just completed recently, the GDV did come in at what the client was expecting at the beginning, like quite a lot higher than the valuer had given in the beginning. So yes, the value is not always right. Yes, the client is sometimes right in terms of valuations, and we were able to pay off all those loans, and there's now nothing outstanding on the deal. So it was a good deal. The client was able to borrow the funds, use some of his own money as well, but repay all of that debt, and there's not much left in the deal. So all around good experience from start to finish. And I guess because the client had used us previously, he wasn't worried that we weren't able to actually deal with it and come up with the goods. So yeah, all in all, very good. So yes, hope you've enjoyed that. I will be back with more. As I said at the beginning, please like and subscribe to the channel. We also post lots on Instagram, so if you want to give us a follow over there as well, that would be fantastic. Speak to you later. Let me know what your thoughts in the comments. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and also give us a follow on Instagram. We've got plenty more property updates on there for you.